Welcome back to Fresh Outlook. Hello, everybody. I'm Logan Crawford. President Barack Obama is looking to keep the internet the way it is, a level playing field for any and all who want to venture onto the information superhighway. The issue is called net neutrality. Take a look.
The issue of whether or not internet service providers can legally control connection speed, access, or interrupt web browsing with commercials are some of the core issues around net neutrality. Net neutrality became a hornet's nest which swarmed when the FCC chair Tom Wheeler proposed rules which public interest groups worried would create fast lanes for companies that pay up and relegate others to slow lanes. Now, before the Federal Communications Commission can make rules, there is a period of public comments. And this issue brought in nearly 4 million comments to the FCC. President Obama sided with public interest.
The idea of net neutrality has unleashed the power of the internet and given innovators the chance to thrive. And that's why I'm urging the Federal Communications Commission to do everything they can to protect net neutrality for everyone.
Shares of major internet service providers Comcast Corporation and Time Warner Cable fell sharply after the announcement.
And we are back live on set here at Fresh Outlook. I am joined by the Ebru think tank, Jackie Guzda, who is a media analyst at Western Connecticut University, Jose Lopez, professor of physics at Seton Hall University, and Paul Oster, CEO of Better Qualified. Joining us also from our DC studios is Dr. Ross Buntrock, an attorney, a partner at Orange Fox LLP. Jackie, I'm going to start with you. This is an issue near and dear to your heart. Explain to me, what are we talking about? Because I'm not that smart.
All right. Right now, we have a free and open internet. Anybody can go and download at the same speed anything they want. You have startup companies on an equal playing field with the big telecommunication firms. Education, people can access whatever they want. So
LoganCrawford.com is on an equal playing field with Netflix.com.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now, what's happening is that the FCC is considering giving more power to the big telecoms like Verizon, like Comcast, like AT&T, and letting them have us pay for the services. Now, they are shrouding the benefits to us. They say, we'll get it faster. We'll get premium sites. Very similar to what happened with television when it went from the basic 3 networks and PBS, and we started to get cable TV with all these little niches. But everybody here on this panel probably pays between $50 and $100 a month now. And when we were kids, we were getting television for free. It's the same kind of thing.
Paul, what's your take on net neutrality and what Jackie's saying? Do you agree?
I totally agree, but there's flip sides to everything. When you look at mass transportation, people pay premiums to get to the same place, whether you're going to fly, take a high-speed train or a regular speed train, or the bus, or a car. So what those lanes dictate, unfortunately, is going to be who has the big bucks.
So you think that President Barack Obama is pretty much wrong on this issue and that we actually should allow superhighways to exist for the big players?
I think it has to be some type of hybrid. Tom Wheeler, the chairman of the FCC, I think he's heading in the right direction. I think this is going to be one of the most complex debated pieces of legislation ever, because it affects everybody from education to information to everything that we do now is controlled by the internet.
Jose Lopez, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that the internet service providers are utility companies. They provide the infrastructure that we need to connect to the internet. The internet is an enabling technology. It is a key thing for our economy right now. Every job out there has some sort of telecommunications connection that goes through the internet, whether it's regular phones to everything right now. So if we restrict this and we make it premium service for a group of people, other groups of people, all we're doing is limiting our innovation and the growth of our own economy. That's what we're doing.
Let's turn to Washington, D.C. and Dr. Ross Buntrock, who is an attorney there, who is very interested in this field and this topic. Ross, tell me a little bit about your thoughts on net neutrality and the proposals that are being tossed about right now.
Sure, I'd be happy to. This is the third time actually in 4 years that the FCC has tried to come up with rules that will pass legal muster. And so kind of the background on how we got to where we are today is that the DC Circuit in January of 2014 threw out the FCC's most recent attempt to come up with rules to basically provide consumers with certainty as to transparency, lack of throttling, and basically the rights to access the content and sites of their choosing. So when President Obama came out last week and said that we should regulate the internet like a public utility, it was a huge kind of bat to the hornet's nest in this debate. It puts Commissioner Wheeler in somewhat of an awkward position since he had been going in somewhat of a different direction. But I think President Obama is kind of riding the wave of public opinion, and there were 4 million comments filed at the FCC when comments are opened on this issue, basically saying we want the internet to be a free, open internet, and people should be able to access the apps, the websites that they want, and they should be able to get their service without being throttled or without having unreasonable discrimination. You shouldn't have a Comcast requiring you to access their search engine that perhaps is competitive with Google. And so that's really what the public has said, and that's what I think the president has tapped into. How this pans out politically is a whole other matter here in Washington, and I think it's going to be some time before there's any kind of real resolution to this issue.
Okay, I'm going to turn to Jackie Guzda. Thank you for your thoughts for a second there, Ross. You're chomping at the bit to join in here, so I see it, so tell me what you think.
Well, just to add to what our guest said, is that we have to look at Tom Wheeler's connections. He used to be a big lobbyist for the telecommunication companies. But aside from that, the most important thing about this is that a free and open internet is integral to a healthy democracy. People need to access all kinds of information without it coming through some kind of a channel. Let me give you an example. Comcast runs, they're the parent company of MSNBC, left-leaning news. If they wanted to, with the new rules, they could block Fox, which is right-leaning, or anybody else that they don't like, and just channel to you the type of news, the type of left-leaning news that they want you to hear. It is really going to slant and polarize the information that the electorate gets, and it's going to ruin our democracy. That's the most important thing.
You know what I think's funny, I'm going to get to you in a second, Paul, is that left-leaning people who usually want the government involved in every way, regulating everything, telling us what to eat for breakfast, what shots we need, how to cut your hair, are now saying, hands off, let it be free market.
Over 80% of those people that have spoken on this are in favor of net neutrality. The problem is, and this is way above my pay grade. So I go this way, then I go that way. But the problem, the fear is, and this could happen, is that by allowing this, we're going to water down the entire system. So yes. Comcast is, and they've already done it. They said, we're not going to spend another dime on putting high-speed internet because everyone doesn't have it right now. So we're not going to lay any more fiber.
But then somebody else will. So let them drop out of the game. Somebody else will.
I don't know about that.
Right. Okay, Jose Lopez.
I would agree with Paul. I mean, the market is controlled by Comcast, AT&T. There's very, very few players. If they say we're not going to do this, they have a monopoly. This is an AT&T monopoly of vintage 1920s telephone company. And they can really control, and they do control the content right now. And the internet, the whole idea behind the internet is the science community. They started out to be an open access channel. Basically share data, share information with each other. And if you limit that, I mean, the content is provided by all of us in this room, everyone in the world. All 7 billion people on Earth can provide content. It's not Comcast, AT&T that are providing the content. And that's what's at stake. Who has the power to provide the content and who's going to limit
and deliver the content
and deliver it. Yes.
Let's turn to Washington, D.C. and Ross Buntrock. Ross, it seems like throughout history there are certain people who control the media, whether it be the publishers or the owners of corporations that own the networks.
Sure. I don't think this is necessarily a media ownership issue. This is an issue, again, as to whether the internet should be treated as a public utility.
Let me just stop you for just a second and ask you, Ross, if it is treated as a public utility, do you fear we will get worse service? Because I don't think our utilities work great necessarily.
I don't think it's going to be really an issue of service. I think that this can be a competitive landscape. I mean, you had AT&T and others announced last week that they were going to abandon for now their fiber deployments in different cities. Well, the reason that those fiber deployments started in the first place was to compete with Google, who was laying fiber in Kansas City, Austin, Texas, in Utah. And so I think that I don't fear that there's going to be service degradation or that fiber is going to be, not be deployed in a ubiquitous way. I think that the market, once it has certainty as to what the regulations are going to be, will respond, and I think that there's a huge public demand for high-speed services. And so I think that what these rules are really designed to do is to make sure that the public can get them on a non-discriminatory basis, in the same way that if I want to get electricity to my house or need water, that I have the same rights to kind of not be discriminated against based on where I live or what neighborhood I'm in or any other factor that is part of kind of the traditional unjust and unreasonable analysis that Title II and the Communications Act and the way that it treats kind of traditional telephone service. And so I don't share the same fears in terms of this is going to be kind of the end of the world as we know it and that the carriers are going to retreat from deployment. I don't see that happening.
Jackie, your thoughts?
I think that the only people who are going to benefit from this are the big telecommunication companies. That is at the crux of this issue. Are we going to work for them? Or are we going to work for the people of the United States? I vote for the people of the United States.
Right, and we do live in an environment now with the internet that somebody like Jose or me can design an app or come up with a website or come up with a service and be on a level playing field like that.
You have your own company. You can start your own company basically from your attic or from your basement or from your kitchen table, which is something that I think it's absolutely synonymous to electricity. Electricity, and we all know Thomas Edison and all the work he did, it started with the light bulb, and then it's an enabling technology that led to washing machines, to dishwashers, you name it, electricity enabled it. And that's what the internet is doing right now to our economy and to the world, not just the United States. I mean, you have in England, they pay $4 a month for their internet service provider, ISPs. It's a utility there. You go to South Korea, they have more than 5 times the internet speed we have, and they're paying about the equivalent of about $10 a month. So what's going on? Why are we paying $50 to $100 a month?
And we double and triple pay. I pay for internet on my phone, for my laptop, for my tablet, for my home, for my, the list goes on and on. I'm actually paying a couple of $100 a month for internet access when it could just be put out there. Paul, what do you think of that?
Well, I think it goes back, to what has been said, that it's somewhat of a monopoly. We only have a couple of major players, and right now they're dictating what's going on. So I am in favor of putting it under, Title II and making it some type of public utility, although I don't think it can fall directly under. Right. I mean, again, very, very complicated situation, that's going to take some time to figure out, because under the capitalistic society, you're going to say, well, they built this, so now we're going to say you can't, operate the way you wanted to operate because, so many people are now dependent upon the thing that you spent billions and billions of dollars.
Exactly. It does seem like it belongs to the people. It's almost like the airwaves. They belong to the people.
Right.
It should be done what is in the public's interest. Jackie, you're shaking your head a lot on this.
Well, actually, the internet grew out of ARPANET, which came out of the Defense Department, which the people paid for. As I said, the whole thing that I always compare the internet with is the Wild West. When the Wild West was free and open, everybody was going, figuring out what they could get from it, and there were gold in those hills. And right
there's
now,
gold in these
there's
hills.
big gold in these hills,
Absolutely.
and we've got to keep the internet open and free, just like the West.
Running out of time on this issue, Jose Lopez, final thought.
My final thought is the internet is a utility. It is like electricity. It's a technology. It's an enabling technology that leads to other things, other technologies, to jobs, to every other thing you can think of. So it's key. We need to have that open and available to everyone equally.
Leave it alone, says Jose Lopez. Now let's turn to D.C. and Ross Buntrock. Final thoughts, Ross, on net neutrality.
I say stay tuned. This debate is not yet over. The president's announcement last week really put things back in a state of play, whereas the commission thought they were going to have an order out by December. That's not going to be the case, and so I think we're going to hear a lot more about this debate before it's over.
All right, thank you so much for your final thought. When we come back, how did Joan Rivers die? A new report offers detailed information on what could be a wrongful death case. More on that and malpractice in general after this.